welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Before we start the show today, I want to tell you about a special discount I have on my online consultations right now. It's a limited time discount where I am offering a 15% discount on my 90-minute in-depth consultations and my 60-minute follow-up consultations. All these consultations are done online, and this offer is going until May 24th, 2019. So it's a simple 3-step process in order to get your discount. Here's what you do. Number 1, I would like you to subscribe, rate, and review the Elements of Ayurveda podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Number 2, take a screenshot or photo of that review. Number 3, email me that screenshot or photo, and I will send you a special link to book your discounted consultation. So simple 3 steps. 1, subscribe, rate, and review. Number 2, take a screenshot or photo of that review. Number 3, email it to me, and I will reply back with the special link where you can book your discounted consult. Now, the offer ends May 24th, 2019, and the consultation must be booked before July 31st, 2019. Now, if you've already left a podcast review, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And the good news is that you can still get this discount. Just send me a screenshot or photo of your review, email it to me, and I will send you that link also. I would definitely want to make sure that you don't miss out if you've already been kind enough to take the time and leave me a review. Over on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group, I have an infographic and all the details of how to do this. But the infographic shows you how to leave a review in iTunes from your iPhone. Now, it doesn't matter where you do the review. It can be wherever you listen to your podcast. But this infographic is specifically for the iPhone. And that is in the announcement on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. So I have never done this before, discounted the consultations. I'm not too sure if I'll do it again, so take advantage of this. And it's a great time to do this if you've already done a consult with me and you need a follow-up, especially as we're going through the change of seasons and you need to shift into new foods, or you want to make sure that you're staying in balance and keeping your body and mind balanced and preventing illness. It's a great time to do this follow-up consult. Or if you're absolutely new to Ayurveda and maybe you've done an online dosha quiz, which doesn't really give much information and it's not a real clear picture of your birth constitution, or most importantly, if you have a current imbalance, it doesn't give you that information. So I would recommend the in-depth consultation for you if it's your first time. And this is where we will talk for the 90 minutes and I will help you determine your birth constitution, see if you have a current imbalance, and then build a strategy of what are the best foods for you, the best lifestyle, and the best routines, and so on, the best exercise. And we'll cover all that to put a good strategy in place for you. So you can find all the information in the show notes. I'll put all that info there and all the links. And I hope to connect with you soon. So now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. I'm here today with Amy. Hello, Amy.
Good morning.
Great to talk to you. The last time I saw you was in person. Myself and Amy attended the NAMA conference, Ayurveda and the Mind, in just outside San Jose in California at the beautiful 1440 Multiversity Center, and myself and Amy were roomies, which was so lovely to spend time together, right, Amy? We're two peas in a pod.
We are. We were the best roomies. We woke up and did pranayama and meditation early, and then we hiked into the forest in the dark at like 4:30 a.m. and did practices in the forest. It was just magical.
Yeah, it was so lovely to spend time together. And the reason we were both awake so early, I mean, I think one morning we were both awake at like 3:30, 4 a.m., was because we were both jet lagged. I had just arrived from France, and Amy had just arrived back from a yoga therapy conference in Japan, right? So we were totally on the same wavelength, and wide-eyed and bushy-tailed at 3:30 a.m. And Amy was like, "Do you want to do, what did you call it? Do you want to do some?" What was the release work?
We did some Japanese isometric yoga, which was so lovely for a couple, 25, 30 minutes each morning.
Yeah, it was perfect. Amy was like, "Do you want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm just going to lay in bed and do this. It was perfect. Oh, my creaky muscles after traveling. So this is what we want to talk about today. Is Amy gave a presentation at the conference on yoga therapy, and Amy's going to talk to us about that today, and also talk about her notes, because in the previous podcast episode on the conference, I covered my notes and other interviews. So today I want to focus on Amy's presentation that she did, which was Ayurveda yoga therapy for stilling the mind. And then sharing your other notes, Amy, will be great. So tell us first of all, about your presentation, and what was your presentation all about?
Thank you for offering the opportunity to talk about it.
So interesting.
Yeah, so I did a presentation with Kamalesh Hooven from Mount Madonna Center, who teaches yoga therapy and Ayurveda, and Arun Deva, an Ayurvedic practitioner from Los Angeles, who also teaches Ayurveda and yoga therapy. And we came together. We worked really hard to, probably 7 or 8 different meetings to make sure that our talk turned out well. And I think it really was well received, if I do say so myself. Mm-hmm. Kamalesh started with talking about the Sankhya model, and how it is that Purusha and Prakriti, our soul and our material body, come into being, and how it is that our senses are formed. How is it that our hearing, our seeing, our touch is formed in the evolutionary process of becoming a human being. Mm-hmm. And then how that's related to what we call the gunas of the mind, rajas, tamas, and sattva. Rajas being your mind is more excited or agitated or angry or moving really fast. Tamas being your mind is a little more lethargic and stuck and slow, heavy. And that, as we become a human being, we develop, and we can have too much rajas, too much tamas, or if we are really lucky by birth, or we cultivate our mind in a healthy way, we can have what's called the sattvic mind, which mm-hmm. is, a mind full of balance and harmony and those types of things. So Kamalesh, went on to talk about the 10 pairs of opposites, or the 20 gunas, mm-hmm. like light and heavy, slow and fast, cold and hot, hard and soft, subtle and gross, clear and cloudy, these pairs of opposites, and how they show up in the mind. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really cool way to start, to basically say, look, we're talking about yoga therapy, mm-hmm. but this Ayurvedic yoga therapy starts from the moment you're conceived and maybe even prior to that.
Absolutely. That was a note I just jot down, that state, the mental quality, I'm sure it goes preconception. And what was the environment you were in, like when you were in utero?
Right. Right. And then she handed the baton off to me, and I talked about how important it is that we, the practitioner, have worked to have a sattvic mind in our lives through our lifestyle, but also when in session, what do we do before we go into session to create sattva so that we discriminate well and see clearly and have an open heart and have connection with our client and feel kind and loving towards our client. And how do we cultivate that in our lives? Because if we as Ayurvedic yoga therapists are in rajas in our mind and we go into session, we're going to project that onto our client.
Yeah.
We will have dirty lenses and we will not see what is actually in front of us. Or especially if we go in with a very tamasic mind, we will also, it's like you're wearing cloudy glasses. Your tamas, actually, you think it's the client that you're seeing tamas when it's really your own bias creating what you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the importance of us having daily practice and us as practitioners having a lifestyle that creates sattva, and how, instead of trying to get, 472 clients with lines out the door where we spend 5 minutes with each person, what would it be like to have 2 or 3 clients a day where we deeply meditate on them and prepare for them and really find a deep, intimate connection with them? Of course, I had to talk about ethics and boundaries, because when you have that kind of intimacy and deep connection with the client often mistakes this spiritual connection for sexual connection, because the prana that flows through the spiritual nadis are the same nadis as the sexual nadis. And so it's very important that we have very good ethics and boundaries, and that we ourselves even recognize, wait, this is a spiritual connection. This is not about any kind of intimacy other than we are human beings connecting at the heart. So I think not only do students get confused about that, but also the practitioners themselves get caught up in it and start thinking something is happening that shouldn't be happening. So, I always have to throw ethics and boundaries in there. So yeah, I think that part was very well received. They seemed very engaged. And then, did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I love the fact that you said rather than having several clients a day, like in the Western medical system, where doctors in the Western medical system only have like 7 minutes per client. I guess that was the last number I saw, where you don't have time to connect, versus taking fewer clients and, like you said, having a more in-depth connection with them and conversation, and really getting into their learning about their life and their concerns, and looking at the whole picture, right? Holistically looking at their health. I think that not only is obviously beneficial for the client, but also for yourself, because there's more of that depth of connection. And I think that's really necessary when you're doing an Ayurvedic or yoga therapy consultation, because we need to see the whole picture. We can't just get a snapshot. I know for me, the 90-minute consultation, there's like 60 minutes of me asking questions. I don't know for you, right, Amy? It's the same.
Yeah, it's all listening. It's all listening. And at the end of that, you can actually still feel sattvic and even more energized with life force and prana, because you've had this deep connection where the prana is flowing between the two of you, and you don't feel tired at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. I feel energized after a consultation where we really connected. And then I love that you brought in the fact that you need to be aware of this connection, and that it is, your client is discussing sensitive subjects, and you have to ask sensitive questions as well. So there's a real opening up and a vulnerability on the client's part, which can be misconstrued and can cross that barrier sometimes. And I think it's so important that we're aware of that as the professionals, and that we have good boundaries that are in place, and so that the client also feels okay to be vulnerable, but at the same time, it doesn't cross over.
Yeah, and it's just such a different approach. I kind of started the talk off saying, look, here's from a Western biomedical perspective how we meet with clients. We look at the list of all the things that are wrong with them, and then we focus on, oh, you have rheumatoid arthritis. All right, I can give you this for your problem. And the whole session is spent looking at what is wrong. And what we're doing in Ayurvedic yoga therapy is looking at the whole person. And yes, this person might have rheumatoid arthritis, but that's not who they are. That's not their identity. And they may have even adopted that as their identity. So we have to help pull that apart and remind them of who they really are holistically. And that takes time. You can't do that in 7 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think there needs to be a building of rapport between you in the first hours, just building that rapport and the client feeling comfortable, and then asking those questions. And there's always something that comes up in that conversation that takes you down a different path. Something intuitive hit, or something will come up in the conversation. A client will say something, and that always leads to the root of what's going on. For me, anyway, it's always interesting to see, and it's very different with every client.
Absolutely. And then reminding them who they are, which is not their illness.
Yes.
And giving them a broad perspective of, look, you still have all this amazing things happening in your life. Let's also focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find a lot of times for me, it's reminding them what they used to enjoy doing before, like you said, they identified with whatever illness or pain is going on in their life, or stress, that what brings you joy. And we spend a lot of time just looking at that, and what did you love to do when you felt good, and also just saying, this is as important as your food, as your lifestyle, as your exercise, as your mindfulness practices. This is as important, doing activities that bring you joy. Absolutely. More important.
Yeah. And then Arun finished us up with his brilliance and showed all these different Ayurvedic spiritual texts and where this information comes from, and quoting each text and telling the different types of healing that can happen according to these ancient texts. So I really appreciate that, because in my notes, I don't always have the exact place, both the text and the chapter and the verse of, all the stuff that I tell clients. I move into clinical mode and kind of forget, like, oh yeah, that came from here. And so he did a beautiful job of basically showing, look, this is thousands of years old, probably 5,000 or more years old, and it's still relevant today. How amazing is that?
It's so amazing, isn't it? And I love that there is a text to refer to. There are written texts that are there to refer to anytime you need them.
Right. Right. So I felt his part of the presentation was so grounding, and it's not that we're making any of this up. It's been on Earth for a really long time, and it's clearly working because it's still here.
Yeah, it absolutely. And the fact that, it's over 5,000 years old and it's stood the test of time. And now that, scientists are agreeing with what Ayurveda has said for thousands of years, it's truly amazing. And, that these ancient rishis went into nature, and I think there must have been spiritual downloads along the way to acquire this information that is so relevant today.
100%. So grateful for that.
It's so interesting to see now this rise in popularity of going back to these ancient traditions. So how do you feel that the people who attended your talk reacted to it? What questions were coming up at the end of the talk?
It was fascinating to me. I was actually a little nervous because as I have learned the teachings and now brought them into a modern context, I'm staying true to the ancient teachings and promoting the ancient teachings, but I'm also giving the message that for your average Joe off the street, we may need to modify the language. We may need to meet them where they are. And I talked about an app that my husband and I have developed that kind of helps you track your mental health according to the ancient teachings. But instead of saying Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, we say, red, white, blue, or gold zone. And I was a little nervous because I knew that there were some really hardcore Ayurvedic doctors in there. Right. And I was like, oh no, are they going to think this is too modern? Are they going to feel offended by this? And, I don't, of course, want to culturally appropriate anything. Right. But I got just the opposite response, which was, oh my goodness, you are staying true to the ancient teachings. You are devoted to the ancient teachings, and yet you're putting it in a language that people can understand. And so I put a sheet of paper out afterwards for anyone that would like to, be advised when the app is ready, which should be in the next 4 weeks. We're in beta testing now. Wow. I know. And I was worried that nobody would sign that piece of paper because they might be mad at me. Colette, I had so many people sign that piece of paper that wanted to know when the app is ready.
That's amazing.
It made me so happy. So maybe in the show notes, I can put a little link in case anyone else would like to know when the app is ready to use with your clients. And the cool thing about the app that I talked about was your clients will track themselves to see what they are, which is very self-empowering. Yes. But then there's an opportunity to share that data with your yoga therapist, your Ayurvedic practitioner, even your yoga teacher. And that if you give that person access to see what you've tracked over the last month, that your practitioner can help you have more ideas and more lifestyle management techniques based on time of day, season of the year, all the things we talk about in Ayurveda. Fantastic. So they were pretty excited about that sharing feature with your healthcare provider.
Oh, it's wonderful. Such a great idea. And I think it's so important to break this terminology down, the Sanskrit words, which can seem, a little hard to pronounce and can be off-putting sometimes for people, and breaking it down and bringing it to them in a language that's digestible, I think is fantastic. So these zones are in relation to Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, right?
Well, I went all the way back to Sankhya and went to the 5 elements. So, in the mind, we have Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, but in the body, it shows up a little differently, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And so instead of confusing people with, how come the body has, these zones and the mind has a different number of zones, I took it all the way back to the elemental theory of Sankhya and worked with it that way. And I think that the people at the NAMA conference even appreciated that look, we don't need all these crazy labels that get misconstrued all over the place anyway. Yeah. Let's just take it back to the 5 elements of Sankhya.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, because I think people identify with the labels too much. I constantly have to say that to clients. Don't worry about what your exact dosha is. It's good information. What you need to worry about is what's your current state. That's the most important information.
Right.
It's what's my current state right now? What's my current state of imbalance? And reading the signs of imbalance in your body. That's really what we should be focusing on. So great. Well, definitely we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I love it. Fantastic. Great. And congratulations.
Thank you. We're getting close.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. You're going to help a lot of people with that. And I love that people then can share it with their practitioners. I think that's fantastic.
Well, and one more thing, we already have it translated into Japanese, Korean, and Hindi.
Oh my gosh.
And we have a lot of other languages on the way. So it's an international app for everyone.
Wow. I'm so impressed. That's amazing. Bravo.
Thank you.
So then moving on, did you want to talk more about your talk? Did you have any more to share? Okay,
no. I'm really excited about our next segment that you're about to introduce because I think Dr. Ram Kumar is the bomb.
Yes. So let me introduce the listeners to Dr. Ram Kumar Kuti, who is a lifelong student of Ayurveda and other traditional Indian knowledge systems. And he is an internationally known speaker on Ayurveda. Dr. Ram Kumar is a founder director of Punar Nava Ayurveda, an institution committed to authentic Ayurveda for universal well-being. So the description for this talk, which is called Ayurveda and the Mind, says that Ayurveda and allied knowledge systems in the Vedic Parampara deal not only with body and mind, but also the human spirit and consciousness. In this session, Dr. Ram Kumar will explore the various aspects of the manas and its role in the disease causation process, as well as its relevance within the context of health, healing, and living. So take it away, Amy. Very excited for you to share your notes on this talk with us.
So you know that you and I had this plan to go to the beach in Santa Cruz on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that Dr. Ram Kumar was going to be here, I was like, oh, Colette, I need to hear this guy. I really want to hear him speak. And you so graciously moved our little beach walk back with our friends and allowed me this hour to hear him. And I actually feel like it was one of the most transformational talks I've ever heard in all of yoga or Ayurveda.
Wow.
I'm gonna buy it. You can, go to the Nama Conference website and buy any of the talks that were at Nama. And I'm personally going to buy this one and listen to it over and over and over to remind me why I'm here, what I'm doing, what I need to focus on, and not get so caught up in all the crazy of my life.
Right.
So he started talking. At first, he was telling us about a funny book he had found that morning, but to me, that wasn't the heart of his talk, so I'm going to skip that part. And he started to talk to us about the Chakara Samhita, Chapter 5, and how the things that really cause us to suffer and to get out of this balanced mind that we call sattva are moha, icha, dvesha, ignorance, desire, and aversion. Those are the things. Ignorance or misperception, we just don't know what the heck we don't know, or our desires, our attachments, and then our aversions, things that we hate. And he said the process that happens is that we start to get very externally focused. Our senses go out and we engage with the outside world. And this makes our mind start to be attracted to or averse to many different things in the outside world, people, places, situations. And when that starts to happen, when your mind starts to go there, you increase what we call your ahankara, this part of you that feels it has to survive, and it has fear that it will not survive. And then you become, instead of someone who's just being, you become the doer. And you start to think, I need to control this, and I need to control that, and I need to make sure that everything unfolds just the way I want. And when we start being the doer and the controller of our lives, instead of sitting back and relaxing and allowing our lives to happen, we get increased attachments. We get a lot of constriction mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. We lose that feeling of lightness and spaciousness. And then once that constriction has happened, we start to have doubts about who am I, why am I here? We start to have questions. We begin to lack faith about our own dharma and what it is that we're here to do. And the bottom line with all of this is that our sense of I-ness, right? Heightened sense of I am, I know more, I'm the creator, I'm beautiful, I am the IP creator. Our sense of ownership, me, mine, starts to increase, and that is the source of all of our suffering, is this individualism. And then we can't see things clearly, we can't discern, and then we take really detrimental actions to our own well-being. And I don't know about you, but this is the script of the suffering of my life.
Yeah.
When I start to clench down and think, I need mine.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, it was just like it was he and I in a room, and he was just talking to me. And and helping me to understand, like, honey, you don't have to keep going there.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And you can see it, where not only the focus on self, but the narcissism that's coming in. And I think this is where we're going wrong. That there's too much of a focus on the self.
Yeah.
And I think I should add here, sorry to interrupt you, but just to say that I think there has to be a self-study first to understand your true nature, but then not becoming obsessed with that. Then once you understand your true nature, once you know how to keep yourself in balance and you feel like you're in your flow with your dharma, then, or even if you don't know your purpose, that just as once you understand yourself, going out into the world and being of service, so you're sharing that energy, sharing just your being, your personality to the world, and that is what our purpose is. I think focusing on ourselves too much brings stress, and you see it over and over again when people are too caught up in their own sense of self.
Right. You and I talked about this, that sometimes we get so focused on, am I in balance? And did I have my kombucha? And did I get my, whatever treatment? And that even in self-care and trying to stay in balance so that we can do our dharma, we can get caught up in that and start to suffer because we were trying to balance ourselves, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, there can be too much of a zooming in. And I think once you have a sense of yourself, I think then you just have to kind of open up and put yourself out there in the world and be of service. And I think that's when we learn more about what our passions are, what our purpose is, or whatever word you like to use. But it's going out there into the world and experiencing different things and giving and being of service and helping others. And then with that comes a flow of prana that really invigorates us, and how good do we all feel? I think everyone feels the same way when we are helping others. Is there anything better?
Right. Than
rather than just the focus on self. I think that can just build stress and inflammation in the body, and it's too much, too inward.
So that was his whole message, is can we move from I, me, mine, the ahankara, I must survive. Yeah. Can we move to the we? And how do we as a culture, a society, how do we with Mother Earth, how do we as a human race work together to suffer less? Yeah. And he went into this beautiful, beautiful talk about, in the ancient texts, there are 7 different types of sattva, which is in the godly realm. And there are 6 different types of rajas, which is the human realm. And there are 3 types of tamas, which are in kind of the demonic realm. And that the 7 sattva is the we. The 6 human rajas states is kind of like the moving towards I-ness. And then the 3 tamasic or demonic states are, you are so deeply stuck in yourself, you can't even see that there's a we. Yeah. So I just wanted to just give you an overview of a couple of these, because this is, again, it was such a beautiful, beautiful talk. Yeah, so the 7 types of sattva, he basically laid out how there are different ways to contribute to humanity, to the world, and different ways to share your gifts. And that's the we. And so he said that there are people who are just creative sattva people, that they are here to create and to maybe share their art or their music or their poetry or their whatever creative thing. I mean, what you do with your podcast is a creative way of being in the world. And then he said there are other people that share their sattva by being a rishi, a saint or a scholar or an academic or a priest. And then he said another one is an Indra sattva, an ethical leader that thinks of the community's needs before his or her needs. It's not about what can I get out of this position that I've been put in leadership, but how can I serve the people? And then another one, one of my favorites was Varuna sattva, which basically means you live your life in a way that you set an intention with no fear. And once you've set your direction and your intention, you move forward through life just flowing with whatever obstacles come your way. You know your intention is just to flow in a particular direction, even if you get stalled up for a year or you go through bankruptcy or somebody, does something terrible to you. You have Varuna Sattva. You know where you're going. Oh, I know. That was my favorite. That was number 4.
Varuna Sattva.
Yeah. And then another type of Sattva was somebody who kind of organizes the records of the universe. And I don't know, I was kind of thinking, is that the Akashic Records?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Yeah, that's what came to my mind.
Yeah, but he gave examples of the people who keep like the medical records of birth and death and that kind of thing. And then another one was the people who are interested in the fine arts, music and dance, which is a little bit like the Brahma Sattva, the first one. But I think the first one had more to do with the Brahma, the support that's needed to create, and then this one is more like the actual expression of those creations.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and then the last one, number 7, was an ethical business person who shares their abundance with the community. An ethical business person who shares their abundance with community. And so his whole point was, look, if you're truly in sattva, you'll probably be doing one of these things in the world. You won't be thinking about, what am I going to get out of this? How much money can I make? Me, I. And you certainly won't be so stuck down in the demonic tamasic states that you'll be completely, self-absorbed and that type of thing. So
I love it.
Let me finish with what he said the lessons are for the tamasic. The 3 types of tamasic, those people need to learn a lesson. The 6 types of rajas, those people need to learn a lesson. And the 7 types of sattva, we need to learn a lesson. So let me tell you those 3. And so the tamasic people that are kind of very, very self-absorbed and obsessed, and it's 100% them, they don't even realize that there's a greater community out there that we're here to serve. Their number 1 lesson is to learn to care about one another and have compassion for one another, and to not have hatred even towards those who hurt you. So that, that's going to be big. If they don't even realize that there's anybody else out there but them, it's going to be interesting to see how they can learn about compassion and empathy and care. So those of us in this human Rajas state, the 6 states of Rajas, which I didn't go into, but the lesson for those of us who are running on a Rajas is to learn to share with one another and to not hold on to everything that we accumulate and gain, that we are here to bring it through us. If we gain some wealth or some knowledge, that our job is to then share that wealth and knowledge and not stockpile it for 6 generations of people, or family members.
Right, because you think when you stockpile things, then it brings that heavy tamasic energy, which I wonder, could it then go into that tamasic state? Because everything is an energy, including currency, right? It's a current. There's a flow of energy. So I truly believe in that we need things to flow through us.
Right. And then the last one he said is those people who are in one of those 7 sattva states that we previously talked about. You kind of flow in and out. And he said that you can like be in the sattva one and then fall down into the rajas one and then pull yourself back up. But once you're kind of established in those dharmas, if you will, that your lesson is to learn to control your senses so that you don't get pulled back into rajas.
Yeah, I could see that.
And self-control. Like really being disciplined and saying, I'm on my path. I've created this, place for myself in Brahma Sattva or Rishi Sattva or Indra Sattva or Varuna Sattva. And I'm going to have enough discipline to not let my senses and my ahankara drag me out of here.
Yeah.
So we have to learn that kind of self-control.
I really feel I'm doing that dance right now. going back and forth. Yeah, well, but I'm, I'm still being, I think that's challenging in this world, and you really have to be disciplined and, and really have a daily practice which keeps you in that sattvic state. And I'm not saying by any means, I want to make clear that I'm not Miss Sattva here. I feel like I've opened the door a little bit and I'm like, oh yeah, I see there, I want to get there, but I can definitely feel the pull of the senses and the desire and, overcome and trying to overcome that all the time. And it can be challenging in our modern world.
I'm with you, girl.
Yeah.
So, bravo to Ram Kumar. It was a lovely, lovely talk. He said a lot more. I have pages and pages of notes that I took. I was writing furiously. But I think, if you like what you heard, you probably just want to go buy the tape.
Yeah, and I missed the talk because I was in deep discussion with other people. But I'm so glad that you shared it, and I definitely want to go by the recording of it. And that's a good point, Amy. For those of you who are interested, you can buy the recordings of the Nama talks. And what I'll do is I'll put the link in the show notes if any of you are interested in that.
It's called Backcountry Recording, and they do all of the talks, so you can buy any of them. And I think you can even get a package of the whole conference for a very reasonable price. We do the same thing at IOIT with our sitar conferences. So if you want to go on Backcountry Recording, they have all the past years of the Nama talks, all the past years of the IOIT sitar talks. They're just a great company that's been around for years and years that helps us preserve this knowledge over time.
Okay, that's great. Great to know. And I think this talk with Ram Kumar was just such a talk for our situation in the world right now, that we need to come out of this I-ness, this focus on self, this me, that's mine, the materialism, and open up to more of the oneness and the fact that we're all connected. And I think that's our shift that we have to make in our consciousness in order for us to thrive as humans on Earth, and also for us to prevent any further climate disaster. I think we need to make that shift.
Well, and that's, why I think that yoga and Ayurveda and yoga therapy, when practiced in sattva, not the materialistic crazy kinds, but when your heart is in the right place and you're doing your best to work towards a sattvic mind and a balanced body and getting away from our I-ness and back to our we-ness, when you're really taking those things seriously, I think it has potential to change the world.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I do think that these ancient wisdoms and ancient practices bring us out of ourselves, connect us with each other, and then just the mere fact that we're connecting with nature and realizing that we are a part of nature, so therefore we'll respect nature and understand ourselves more and other people more, understand the different constitutional types. So there's just more of a compassion and empathy for others and a compassion for nature, because we understand we're made up of the same elements and so on. And that information and education alone can help us have greater awareness and a greater sense of connection.
And isn't it just lovely that you and I get to have careers, and I train yoga therapists, Ayurvedic yoga therapists, to do this work, and you help people on an individual basis do this work. I can't think of a more amazing life purpose than the one you and I have fallen into.
Yeah, I feel truly blessed. And I think what's really exciting is now I'm finding that I'm working with clients on a one-to-one basis. And once they discover Ayurveda, they too want to study it, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of calls and emails from people saying, where can I study? Where do you recommend? And I just think that's what's exciting, is that people are just captivated by it, and it resonates with them so much that they want to go study it for themselves. And I think that's fantastic.
I'm with you.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, my dear. Is there other notes that you want to share, or?
I think I feel complete. Yes. I just really wanted to, talk about our talk that we did, which you can also purchase on the Backcountry Recording site, and Ram Kumar, and I feel complete.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and it was such a pleasure to share the experience of the retreat with you.
Thank you, Colette. Such an honor.
Oh, thanks. Okay, my dear, we'll talk soon. Take good care of yourself, and thanks again for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Ciao. So I hope you enjoyed that chat with Amy. So kind of her to share about her own presentation at the NAMA conference and also her notes from the conference. Any of those links we mentioned in the show, I will put them in the show notes. Now, I also mentioned about studying Ayurveda, and I remember years ago when I was trying to choose a place to study online, it was really hard. I remember doing out a spreadsheet, and at that stage, there were very few schools, at least online schools, available. Nowadays, I understand there's lots and lots more choice, and it can be very challenging. So if you have questions, feel free to email me at info@elementshealingandwellbeing.com. The link is in the show notes as well. I also wanted to remind you again about that discounted offer, 15% off my online consultations, and the offer runs until May 24th, 2019. See the show notes for all the details. And also my upcoming Ayurveda and yoga retreat right here in the village of Villefranche-sur-Mer, which is just outside of Nice. And Nice is about 7 kilometers away. It has an international airport with lots of flights coming in daily, even a direct flight from New York. So it's pretty easy to get to. The retreat is happening October 11th to the 13th, 2019. There's going to be yoga classes, there's going to be Ayurvedic talks, and there's also going to be Ayurvedic workshops, as well as lots of time to explore the village and enjoy this beautiful French village on the Mediterranean. There's a lovely beach where you can swim. It will still be warm enough in October, and that's a great time of year to come because the tourists are gone and the kids are back in school, but the weather is still great. So it's a really fantastic time of year. So I hope you can join me. I do have discounts on the rates right now. So check out the link in the show notes. There are some spaces still available. So make sure you get your booking in soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. And take good care of yourself. Be well. And I hope to connect with you soon. Ciao for now.